I think what excites me is that we're seeing folks that want to use AI, but they use it in a way that can help them be better humans, not to replace them.
This is the Marketing Agency Power Hour, and I'm your host, Cal Wilder. Each week, we'll power through discussions on business challenges, success stories, and game-changing strategies. This show is sponsored by SmartBooks, provider of bookkeeping and accounting for marketing agencies. Let's get started. I'm excited to learn from today's guest and have him share his story with listeners. He's a thought leader, he's an author, a founder, and entrepreneur. He's a sales strategist who redefines how companies connect with buyers. He's also the founder of the Philadelphia Heritage Semi-Professional Soccer Club, the developer of the H2H method and frameworks, and the author of the book Trust Call. He's the cold call CEO at Superhuman Prospecting and Quick Calls. Ryan Pereus, welcome to the show.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
So tell me, what's the single most powerful strategy for success in your firm these days?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's quite a few things. That's a pretty big question, and I like it because it makes me really think about, hey, how would I prioritize? Like, what's the biggest, success factor? Well, I think culture and people are a huge part of it. We have a manifesto of what we're trying to do here that underlies our entire operation, right? And it's trying to advance the sales profession and build trust back in cold calling through services for our clients. And then from there, it takes buy-in from our team to buy into that culture, because everyone who's on our campaigns has to, at some level, execute on that. And so getting everyone to row in the same direction and having them buy into that story is something with a people business, is something we found to be really important for that.
And I know you've got a passion for cold calling, telemarketing, for lack of a better word. And some of us probably have this image of, boiler room kind of culture, but that's not at all what you've built. But talk to me a little bit about you go about kind of building a culture and attracting people who really thrive in doing that kind of work.
I know, right? You kind of have to trick them a little bit into liking it. And at the end of the day, cold calling is a dirty office job. And one of the ways that we've done that is, again, kind of building that story that the sales profession is an honorable profession. It takes a very specific skill set, and one that's not that common, by the way. And you really have to position yourself to be a change agent and someone who is an influencer, someone who transfers belief that a product or service can work. And it's not an easy task. And so kind of by building the glory to the caller in many ways is something that we've really worked on, and incentivizing and celebrating their wins, and, not thinking of it so much as telemarketing, right? But as learning a product and service and be able to speak to people at a high level to get them to move.
Yeah, I mean, as a business owner, I probably get 10 or 12 cold calls a day. And unfortunately, I'm at the point I don't answer my phone a lot if I don't know the caller ID. But sometimes I do, just to see who's calling, and maybe it's a prospect, right? But I can tell you, like, it's night and day the difference between somebody who had skill at that job and somebody who's just doing it for the sake of doing it. And if I can tell they have some skill and some passion, I'll talk to them. I won't just hang up on them. I'll listen to them, give them a couple minutes, and we'll have a nice discussion. And it usually doesn't go anywhere. But I definitely respect the people who bring skill and passion to it. And unfortunately, I do admit I do hang up on those who do not have skill.
I clearly, you haven't been called by one of our callers yet. Okay. We'll make sure to get you.
Great. I'll give you my cell phone number later.
Oh, don't do that. Yeah.
Unfortunately, they've got my cell phone number. Somehow it got linked to my business. So
Yeah. I was going to say, we probably already have it.
how do you go about, you tend to hire people who have a lot of calling experience. You bring them in as novices and teach them from the beginning.
Yeah. We used to only hire folks that had experience. But what I found is, as we developed our methodology and got very, very scientific about our framework, we found that we could actually take people with raw ingredients and have them fast forward to success by just ensuring that they were coachable and could follow our process. And so, we've actually I really enjoy hiring kind of articulate college students and young folks because they're hungry, they have passion in their voice, and if they can follow, they can be extremely effective. So we look for a range of things, but typically it's good conversational skills, coachability is huge. For whatever reason, people like to cling to their past experiences with sales, and that because there's no like boards or bar exam for sales, people kind of qualify and graduate themselves as experts. And so what we have to realize is like, hey, some people are going to be doing it their own way and it just doesn't work as good as they might be doing their own thing. But we have a certain process here that's scalable with quality, and they can still be themselves and have their own authentic personality injected. But, we just have certain checkpoints that we see as quality. So they just have to be able to follow that. So good conversation skills combined with coachability and, commitment is really the ingredients we look for these days.
I mean, I think calling's one of those skills that is really valuable. But it's one of those skills that you don't get taught in school, right? That you don't go major in sales, right? There's no cold calling 101 course if you go to college, right?
Well, there wasn't, and I think that's the thing is many people in the workforce today didn't have that. What's really interesting is in the last 10 to 15 years, there's been a development of uh, colleges that have actually added professional sales degrees as bachelor and now master's degrees.
What are some of those? What are some of those schools? I'm curious.
Yeah, so like Baylor University is a big program. My hometown, University of Toledo, is one of the originals. Uh, I think Central Florida or Florida State has a really good sales program. And, Xavier University, I actually got to speak there last year. And then actually right now, it's funny you asked that. I'm currently working with Elon University's sales program on a 4-week workshop uh, this month and going in there in 2 weeks to do some role plays with them before they have to do a competition. So it's exciting.
Cool. So, so obviously, your business is all about calling. Is that the only thing you do?
Well, calling is our main, what we hang our hat on. I would say 80% of our revenue comes from that. But we do have 2 other supplementary services. We used to have more, but we actually got rid of them because I just realized like I don't want to we could get wrapped into this because people ask for these types of services. Like our customers or potential customers ask, and it's like, oh, well, we could offer that. But you can get trapped in a kind of a rat race there, just a game of, your hamster wheel spinning because you're not really focused on what you're good at. And with increasing competition and changes in the market, we have to keep our ear to the ground with what we're best at to not only be effective, right, when we get clients, but also differentiate ourselves. So we limited it. We used to do LinkedIn prospecting, we used to do B2B canvassing, event marketing, but now we just do warm and cold phone calls. Okay. So we will talk with current customers. We'll do some B2C, but B2B cold calling is kind of what we hang our hat on. But we also provide list building services. So custom lists based upon the criteria that is needed and identifying target client profiles. So they can purchase a list. They could also bring one to us. All right. And we also do additional email support and follow-up. So we don't even sell email prospecting as a service standalone, but we do it as supplement to the calls. So as the calls are being made, it builds familiarity. We can match the messaging. And then we also do warm and nurture lead follow-ups to people who aren't quite ready for like that next step sales meeting. That's like usually the quintessential tier of what we're trying to reach. So we'll do that initial follow-up and outreach to them too.
Okay. And you're passionate about this. You've written a book about it. You've developed a whole framework around it, right? Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So when I first started Superhuman, it wasn't because I had this dream of owning a telemarketing business, believe it or not. Of course, it's every kid's dream to be a telemarketing business owner. But yeah, it was something where I started off being a cold call script writer and consultant. And people said, hey, we like your scripts. We like your training. We actually just never want to do these calls. Could you do them? And we had been cold calling and we had a client that we were doing that for, but we were offering, whatever at the beginning, like people would kind of latch onto. And I wanted to be a consultant within the space, but I knew also that I didn't have the experience or knowledge of every market. So I said, while this wasn't the original dream, what an opportunity to be the best at it by getting experience and documenting the process along the way. So over the first 5 years, from like 2007, 2016-ish to 2021 or something like that, we were able to collect all sorts of data on many markets, many product origins. So targets from to targets to, right? So manufacturing, healthcare, SaaS, marketing companies, you name it, we were calling into. And so that allowed us to analyze and say, hey, what's working, what's not? How do we make things work? Which is the beginning of our methodology. So we were able to identify the way that humans connect from 0 to 1 through cold calling. And that's the beginnings of, hey, like, I think we have something here that no one's really ever documented. Not to say that we were first to do that, because there's been other telemarketing and cold call companies. But like, we were one of the first ones to document a fully comprehensive philosophy, strategy, values, frameworks on how to go about cold calling effectively in the 21st century. And so that's where that began. And it's got to the point now where we have a course on it on our website, the hthmethod.com. I have all the main 5 frameworks, basically the 5 main conversational structures that we've seen that work right now. And then we have our trained sales strategists write scripts based upon our product services that we're working with and based upon the market we're reaching out to, right? That would change what structure we choose. So that's kind of how we've got to where we are with all that.
To what extent is AI impacting your business?
So it's interesting, positively, believe it or not. We've actually seen since April, whatever reason, April is a big thing. Since April last year, we've seen an increase almost consistently every month in the number of appointments set from decision maker connections or conversations we've had. So not dial. So I'll give you to kind of break it down, right? You call someone, they don't answer, right? That's just a no answer. We call somebody and it's a decision maker, we get them on the phone. So it used to be that 1 out of every 8 of those turned into a meeting. And last month, it's 1 in every 4. So all like 4.5, somewhere in there. So almost double the amount of people have set meetings with us since April. So what we've seen is an increase in, I think, our team's abilities. I want to give them credit, but also people just wanting more human connection. People are craving that because not only do they have digital fatigue, it's overload. We have all these tools and AI. I was just talking to someone the other day. It's like, yeah, like AI is great, but it's probably being utilized, 1, 2, up to 5% maybe of its capacity, And so that's kind of where we've seen an increase in that conversion.
Cool. You think because people are just kind of working from home a lot, they don't mind talking to people on the phone as much? Or what do you really attribute that?
Yeah. So I want to say this with context, like we have seen a slight dip in connection rate, specifically to like mobile numbers, like iPhone, because the iOS 26 changes where there's more call screening now. Have you seen that?
I'm an Android guy, so no.
Good. Stay that way. We can get a hold of easier. But, there was correlation. There was a slight dip in overall call to connection rates. But once we got someone on the phone, we've seen almost double is my point of people turning into a meeting. But what we've also noticed is that while some of that may be impacted, sometimes it's positive because you basically just have a subject line in your cold call now. It's like, hey, what's this caller? Who are you and what are you calling about? Or where are you from? And you can say it and it shows up on their screen, right? So what we've noticed is people think that the only type of phones that are being cold called are mobile numbers and specifically iPhones. But that's not true. In fact, out of we started tracking in August, all of our calls that were made and leads generated, 80% of all of our leads generated at Superhuman. We said about 500 a month to our clients. It ranges, but about average. 80% were from company and direct numbers, not mobile. 80%. No one has that data because no one's tracking that. So that's why we see cold calling alive and well. We have great conversations. We have great strategy to talk to gatekeepers. We know how to get the right person on the phone or reveal if they are the right person. Direct numbers, company numbers, people answer their work numbers more than their cell phone.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that because when somebody calls my work number, I answer it. Somehow the cold callers all have my cell number, so I don't answer my mobile very much, but I answer my work number if people call.
Quote it. Put that on our website. Quote it.
How much have you seen the success rates or conversion rates vary, or connection rates, however you measure it? How much does it vary from industry to industry?
Greatly. Yeah. We have averages. People are like, oh, what are your connect? Like, what can we expect from this campaign? If you're gonna call for us, what can we expect in terms of results? And the first thing I say is, I completely understand where you're coming from, and this is an investment for you. But the one word I never use here is expectation. And I say, the longer I've been in this, the less and less of a fortune teller I've become, and more of a historian I am. And that's because I can see better and better what's worked and use that as our first step forward. But many times there's slight variables, even within similar industries, that catastrophically or exponentially change results in positive or negative ways.
Huh. What are some of the industries where calling's more effective and some where it's less effective?
Yeah. So it can change throughout time, right? So for instance, like during COVID, there are macroeconomics and business conditions that make a difference. Okay. Like during COVID, right? As soon as COVID hit, we lost 30% of our clients overnight. Some of it was just because their business were doing well, but we lost some because of industry changes, right? So think of it like this. We used to do a lot of pre-event calls to get people to show up to booths, and also post-event follow-up calls. Well, guess what industry got obliterated during COVID? Was in-person events. Guess what went up? COVID-19 mask, N95 mask sales. So supplying companies and hospitals, organizations that have a lot of people with masks, right? So it does depend sometimes on what's going on in the market. But I'll tell you, that was during COVID. So for instance, right now, we're having a ton of success calling into school districts. The folks are behind their desk. They answer the phone. They're public servants, and also they're using state and federal dollars. So I would say we have, out of our 110 plus clients a month right now, like 15 or so reach out to school districts. Another one is tour centers, like a lot of outdoor events, and people want to post COVID, like people always want to be out doing things. That's really worked. Manufacturing can work. We've seen small to mid-sized businesses with commercial insurance do well. So I could keep going, but those are a few.
So for you, if you think about your own firm internally and, what are your dreams and goals over the next few years with owning your own business here?
Well, I think, that's a great question because, it goes back to that original statement I said, which is, what's the foundation of what we're trying to do? Our mission statement that we try to actively share with our internal team and our clients is basically try to advance the sales profession and continually develop it to build trust back in the marketplace by providing multiple services around cold calling, and help their clients or their prospects to see the value in what they do in a trustworthy way. So there's a lot of different ways, like we're doing that right now. Like we're manifesting that in real time by setting up quality meetings without robocalls and parallel dials and lots of spam and gaps between pick up and answer and overseas callers. Like we're doing it with real W2 manual calls, right? But the other thing I think is, goes back to that. I would love to help advance the next generation and get into colleges and universities and have them help us call, having, smart and intelligent, articulate people learning through our methodology, through classes and courses, and help them to be prepared for the next level by partnering with those schools. I have a revision of the book coming up with some new frameworks that we've developed, and continuing to get into different markets that are having a struggle right now doing it internally.
Cool.
Yeah.
So what's a challenge that you recently had to overcome or something that you're grappling with at the moment?
Well, I would say the iOS 26 was kind of there was a little bit of a worry moment there last summer because they announced it in like April, right, or the spring, and then those things are going to be implemented in August, where they're basically going everybody's going to have a phone screening, which would hurt, theoretically hurt calls. And
What does that mean? The caller has to identify themselves before the recipient answers, or
so if it doesn't recognize the number, you can change a setting on there, and I think some of them are default. So I don't know if it's default or not, but when you call an iPhone, instead of like it just calling and the person has to answer, basically what it says is like to the caller, and I think it's using AI. It says, "Hey, would you like, if you want to talk to this person, please state your name and what you're calling about." And then it transcribes it on their screen for you with your number. So it says, "This is Ryan cold calling you." And you can decide if you want to answer it or not based upon that message. So it gives people the opportunity, it's a cold caller, it's not a customer, I don't want to answer. So that gave me a little bit trepidation last summer. I won't deny that. Right. But like I said, the phenomenon that happened is we've seen so much overstimulation with digital that people are working from home and seeing so much, having digital fatigue, to actually appreciate good salespeople talking to them and can actually trust that a little bit more because they don't know what to trust now with everything being AI.
that's true. Yes.
You know? So that's one thing. Yeah.
Uh, So, I'm gonna ask you how you go about managing your books and your finances, since that's my day job. I'm always curious how other business owners go about doing it. I know you're at a certain scale, you're not doing it yourself anymore, right? But how do you manage it and stay on top of it?
So we have a human system, so we have a couple bookkeepers like that have other aspects, other full-time job at our company, but we've been able to like kind of roll up some of their tasks into helping with bookkeeping. And then, our CPA will review everything and put together a P&L statement monthly. But I am still the one in charge of primarily, I have one other person that helps me, but I primarily do the billing. So I'm in charge of that, which does take up some time. But yeah, I would say that we have some all hands on deck with that right now. Yeah. Not sure what we're spending on it. Not sure if I want to look.
Um, I'm curious how you price your services. That's always an interesting discussion for agencies. They're trying to figure out how to price effectively these days.
Yeah, I'm happy to share a deck. We actually put it on YouTube. We put our I do a 15 minute to 30-minute video demo on basically the entire pitch of what I would present to them if I was to meet with them. I don't care anymore. I want everyone to know, but they just need to hear the story of how we get to our pricing. So we actually have very unique pricing. We actually pride ourselves in being the lowest entry level cold call rates in the entire US market using a USA based sales team and a manual sales dialer. Okay. Or auto. Like we actually have a style of dial they can choose now. But we don't use predictive robo or agent assisted dials. So I can explain that later if you don't know what that is. But essentially, we charge by a call activity. Okay. So you can buy a bucket of calls. As you increase volume, you get more economies of scale. You can do calls list. You can do calls list email support, that inside sales, for a bundle package discount, where we actually discount list and email services 40 to 65%. So if you can bundle all together, we give you, really good bang for your buck. But we could start as low as $11.97 for our premium services. So that includes an account strategist, script writing, team training. We have our own proprietary software dashboard that people can jump on and utilize, right? And then we do appointment confirmation calls and resets for free. So that starts at $11.97.
Per call?
No, that's so the package is $11.97. So it's like 350 or 750 calls, right? So 350 manual, 700 auto dial. So depending on the market. And that's how we kind of build a package based upon your exact situation. And then if you want to make it simple and lump it together, we do the bundle packages, right? Just has everything together for a discount.
Yeah, I'm curious the different ways people are calling these days, because when I answer the phone, a lot of times there's a few seconds pause, or there's this like beep or tone I can hear, and I'm like, those are the ones I just hang up on. But if it's like an authentic person who, starts talking within a second, then I listen.
Well, that's exactly the challenge, right? Is that's what we don't do. So we have one of our differentiators, we call it our technology strategy, is a purist strategy. So we don't use agent assisted parallel robo callers, because basically what happens is the dialer is calling 2 to 8 people at one time. Whoever answers, the rest of the people are hung up on.
Oh, I notice I'm getting a lot of hangups. That's why, huh?
That's what that is. So you answer like, hello, hello. That's because someone else answered before you. So they're talking to that person, but it routes to that person. And so that's why there's a gap between pickup and answer. Right. And so that's why you hear it sounds like a tunnel, and they're confused. It's like, oh my gosh, who am I talking to? Oh, they're looking at the screen. And many times it's overseas too. And it sounds like they're in a tunnel. So we do it where it's manual. As soon as someone answers, we start talking. They're all USA based, US American accented, right? And we actually have an alert system with our dialer that's connected that notifies us when things start to show up as spam. So we can phase that number out and get a new one. If it does it even.
Yeah, I had one company that would call me and they harassed me, and I kept asking them to stop calling. Of course, they didn't. But I could tell because they would always call from the same area code, and I just knew what company it was. But then they got smart and they started renting numbers from all over the country, and I couldn't tell who it was anymore.
It just ruins cold calling.
Yeah, they give you guys a bad name.
I know. So
what excites you about the future?
I think that the future is bright for humans with skills that are building trust with other people. I know that sounds a broad statement, but like trust is always such an issue at the core of business. And that's why I say it in a way that doesn't have to do with just calling. It could be it with any business, like looking for competency that they can rely on. And that's from a buyer and seller perspective, and so I think what excites me is that we're seeing folks that want to use AI, but they use it in a way that can help them be better humans, not to replace them. And I think that's, there's maybe some roles that are coming more automated, but at the same time, that is a charge from the universe for that person to develop their skills more and realize like they have to build upon what they're doing in order to get to the level that's necessary to be a contributor, right? And so I think what we're doing is continually refining ourselves and working on our ability to be good at calling and doing the right things there. And so it's rebuilding that trust back in the marketplace, and people are actually transacting business through these calls where people say that cold calling is dead. So it excites me that like people are actually excited to hear from cold callers more than I think I've seen ever in doing this. Right. So that's what's cool, is that I say it because it's my perspective being in a cold call, human to human type of role, but it just gives me hope and confidence that, there's tons of opportunity to rebuild that back and maybe have products and services sold a little bit more through that channel than we've ever seen, at least in 40 years.
When I was younger, I gotta admit I didn't have as much respect for the sales profession as I do now. But having been around some great salespeople, it's a tremendous skill. And I just wish there were more people with more skill doing that profession.
That's the problem. And I think that's a lot of it. I think there's a two-way toxic relationship. And I do think that salespeople started it, where in the Wolf of Wall Street days, which is true, like there are SEC rulings around boiler rooms Um, there's SEC rulings around you cannot have a boiler room any longer, and it's because of those like penny stocks and things that were sold. There's like faulty commission insurance selling. There's also I have a book called Telemarketing Scams of the 1990s, like literally a book. And that's part of like the challenge, right? Is like they started this by scamming people. That's where the mistrust came, and that's why people hate telemarketers. All these pesky people that are annoying and they reach out to you, and it's right. That's like that's the face that we have. But what I've seen though is that the as people have been able to salespeople have been able to develop their skills and become more competent and build that relationship a bit better and provide real value, there's a little bit of a change in the guard. And we hope to continue doing that. But that's really where there's that toxic relationship where like, yeah, we started it, but now buyers are being a-holes to us in kind of like retribution for what they did to our ancestors, like in the 90s, our parents who always complained about it, you know? And so there's kind of this like buyer seller toxicity that maybe is healing a little bit from, I think, the reestablishment of salespeople at colleges and universities, the effort to build trust back, you know. Um, so there's some comments there. Daniel Pink in that book, To Sell is Human, which is so timely. We just got done reading that as account management team, and I had read some of it a few years ago, and he kind of talks about this idea about, I forget the word he uses, some like French or Greek word, but basically he's talking about how the power used to be with the salespeople back in the 90s because we had all the information. So we could say whatever we want, and people would have to believe us because they didn't have any other information to fact check us, right? But guess who has all the information now more and more? The buyer. So it's kind of like, it was like caveat buyer, caveat seller. Now it's caveat seller, that the seller has to be careful because the buyer has a lot more power than they used to, right? But obviously, influx of data information, sources they can't trust also is an issue, which is why I think there's kind of this like competing force of like, hey, AI, digital information, do we trust it versus do we trust humans? Do you follow what I'm saying? There's like kind of this weird, uh, rally going back and forth a little bit.
Yeah. 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 I can definitely see that.
Not something we all think about all the time, but I'm stuck thinking about.
So, if you think back to days of little Ryan as a child, did you think you would be owning and running your own business one day?
I probably thought I'd be owning a business. I think so at some point, right? Like I think probably around 16, I started to mess around with eBay. I would go around to like garage sales when eBay first came out and take stuff and like resell it. And I think that's really where I began to learn messaging. It's how to phrase things in a way that was truthful, but in a persuasive way that people would want to buy. All the way to like, doing the lawn mowing thing in my neighborhood. I used to recondition vacuum cleaners and sell them. I'd buy them for bulk and then resell them on eBay. So there was always that knack, but I definitely did not think it would be a telemarketing business owner. That's for sure.
And so was there a single catalyst to starting your current business?
Well, I think it came down to, I really, yeah. So I think way back in the day, I had my first sales manager job was my first job out of college. I was 23 and I walked into this bathroom remodeling company where I had 40 sales reps underneath me at 23.
Wow.
I had no idea what that meant. And these are people's lives, right? And so I had to train these folks, recruit, hire, train, build a culture with them, get them to perform and generate leads for the sales reps to go and close this, in-home installation for this service. And yeah, I mean, I was taught by these folks I was talking about, like mobster style, like cutthroat sales guys, that taught me a lot of really good skills. I don't want to, I need to recognize like that's very much like some great skills I learned and how to close, but it's also backed by doing whatever it takes to get the sale, even if that meant selling your soul. And I think what that means is like, you know, hey, this is a free obligation, no estimate. We're just going to educate you and give you a price. And then at the other side, the sales reps who got the cops called on them at people's homes were the ones that were celebrated because they were there too long and wouldn't leave until they bought. Like that's what I'm talking about. So literally, he would tell any people that would happen to, he'd be like, "God bless you." That's what he would tell them. You know. So I think like that's the way I was raised. I'm like, man, like I can't. This doesn't sit well with me. And that was something where I kind of took a few years off. Like I got in a couple other roles, but then I traveled around a little bit and worked remote and was doing some other things with soccer. And it made me think, I had an existential crisis. Like maybe sales isn't for me, even though I had a knack for it. I was decent at it. But I thought, well, maybe there's a way to do this with maximizing those results still without hurting trust with these people, right? So you're getting short-term opportunities, but then building trust with the long term. And so that's where that H to H method came from, human to human. And so, yeah, started to do services like, hey, I'm going to go do this. I moved back to Philadelphia. I'm originally from Ohio. I was in New Zealand at the time doing soccer stuff. And I said, I'm going to move back to Philly. I'm going to start my business there. And I want to be a sales consultant. So I would do projects for people. I'd do training, script writing. And then I would also do this like event marketing in person. We'd do cold calling. And then, like I said, people would say, hey, we love these scripts, we like this training, but we actually never want to do these calls. And it was a time in the market where digital was still a conversation. People were getting digital fatigue, but it was the beginning, right? It was like when people started having websites and were on the computer a lot more than we used to. And so the beginnings of this, like, hey, does cold calling still work? Were being questioned. And there wasn't many companies like mine at the time, right? So kind of began that journey, and more people needed calling. And next thing we know, we had 3, 7, and then had a new office, and we've been at about 40 people or so.
That's a lot of salespeople to manage.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. But we got a really good team, and it's taken us a while, but we have a really good leadership team, and they're bought in to the mission, and they just do such a great job of getting the most out of folks, and catching people catching people when they're doing something right, because we like to catch people when they're doing something wrong. That's natural. But if you catch them when they're doing something right, you build a lot of credit back in to give yourself that ability to withdraw when you need to.
So no, soccer's been a big part of your life, right? You played soccer in college, or?
Yeah, so I actually I played my whole life, and then I kind of skipped out in early college and regretted it. And then I ended up getting back into it and played in grad school at Palm Beach Atlantic down in Florida for a year, and then got just well enough to be offered a spot on this team in New Zealand. It was like a semi-pro level team. I was like, well, why not? I'm in my 20s still. So I went out there, and then, decided, hey, I'm probably not going to have my life moved over here 24 hours away flight. So came back, realized that Philadelphia is a huge soccer community. It's a hotbed for amateur semi-pro in the area. And so between us and New York and Maryland, like there's a huge circuit. And so there's even teams that have clubhouses here. We played Manchester United back in the 50s. Like that's how rich the community is here. So ended up starting a team in 2020. My mom created the logo. They're called Philadelphia Heritage. You can see one of our keeper jerseys right there, and our scarf. But it's been awesome. Yeah, it's a great outlet for me, stress reliever. I get to run around with like younger guys. They let me do it. But I manage the team. I head coach right now. I'll practice with them, and we made a run with the U.S. Open Cup qualifiers a couple years ago, which is cool. Got through a couple games. So, trying to rebuilding. We won the division the one year. So yeah, we're guys are excited, and we have a great community here. I hope to continue that. And the end dream is to build a small lower league stadium. So I don't know if you've heard of like Welcome to Wrexham. with Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney from R20.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever watched it, but I am aware of it. Yes.
Okay. So that's what they did. Now in Wales and England, it's much bigger. So they had a real stadium that's been around for a long time. It's kind of considered professional, but it's like fifth division in the English system. And I think they have 7 or 8, right? And these guys came in and like obviously invested a bunch of money in there, and they've gone into the ranks. Now they're in the championship, which is the second division.
Didn't they advance 2 divisions in 2 consecutive years or something like that? Which is unheard of, right?
So, it's crazy, right? So here it's not quite like that. Like US soccer's broken and it's getting better. I want to give credit. Like it's gotten a lot better than it used to, but it's kind of all melding from the bottom to from the top. It didn't grow grassroots naturally like it did overseas. But so we're kind of in that like fourth, fifth division here. It's not quite as good as that level, but it's guys out of college usually, or, maybe retired from pro or something like that. And, I think there's opportunity for, like other countries. There's stadiums that are 1,000, 2,000 people max, right? Like a couple rows around, you get a bar and a fitness place, and you have yourselves a club, you know? So that would be the long dream, the long-term vision. So we'll see, but we're having fun in the meantime. Yeah, it's grown so much now that we actually have announcers that come to our games and they're live streamed. It's not every game, but it's each team gets about 2 to 3 per season for fall and spring. So we'll have 2 or 3 games live streamed. Yeah, it's called oh, what are they called? A game in frame. Game in frame. Yeah. Yeah. So they're from New York. They come down and we pay. There's like a partnership with the league, so that we're able to kind of work that out with the finances, and they're able to do that, and they have announcements. They follow the teams and how they're doing, and they have their favorite players. They do interviews after the game, stuff like that.
Yeah, I was lucky. I went to school down in ACC country in North Carolina, and I saw a lot of great soccer, for 4 years when I was in college there. I went to the national championship game in 1995. I saw Duke finally knock where my alma mater, Duke, finally knocked off Maryland in overtime. I mean, Virginia in overtime, and then unfortunately lost in the championship game, but, it was incredible. Yeah. Saw Bruce Arena back when he was still coaching Virginia.
Oh my gosh! Wow.
A lot of good sports there, among soccer among them. Yep.
No, that's really cool. It's a great place to be for soccer.
So is there anything else you like to do when you're not working other than soccer?
So I started playing golf a couple years ago. As much as I'm gonna play soccer till my legs fall off, I realize there's a expiration date coming probably at some point. Where with I think golf, I kind of I feel like I'm in my rookie season or sophomore season, and I have the next 40 years. So I really enjoyed that, and I got lessons. So I try to do that when I can. Usually once a week between the spring and the fall. I just started playing piano, so I need to tap into my musical side. I feel like business, so math, numbers, strategy, that like accessing that other side has been really great. So I've been learning piano and tapping into that. Um, so yeah, I mean, go to sport events, hang out with friends. I don't have, I'm single, so I get a little bit more freedom than most, I guess. But enjoy my team at Superhuman. We hang out. I have another company, like I said, invested into, which is a innovative pest control company called Mosquito Nix. And so one of the cool things I learned at Superhuman was calling for so many different products. You really get to learn what's working and what's not. And one of the things I biggest lesson I learned, I think, about products is those that are unique, rare, innovative, or high value to the market. But easier to say unique, rare, innovative to the market are ones that perform the best. So I said, well, maybe if I'm going to get into another business as an entrepreneur, I want to find a product that is unique, rare, innovative. And so this pest control, it sounds like a normal industry, right? You have the guys with Ghostbuster backpacks on that go and spray. You have to have your kids and pets out the yard for, bugs and mosquitoes and stuff. Well, this is a eco-friendly botanical-based misting system. So the way it works is we install these nozzles and tube like you see at the produce section of a grocery store, and it's all controlled from an app on your phone. So what happens is you can have it on a timer. It sprays in the kind of like irrigation system, but it sprays in the morning and in the evening when the bugs are most active. and it kind of kills them in that larva stage through dehydration, not through like zapping it, right, with Raid or something. And then if you're going out for an event or going outside with your kids, you can always go and spray at the press of a button. So they pay a subscription fee, and we only have to go and refill every couple months instead of going out every couple weeks to spray. So bought into that a couple of years ago, and we're the first franchise in Pennsylvania.
Nice. So if folks are listening and, want to talk to you more about how you might be able to help them or just kind of learn more about your business and how that you could help their clients, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
So yeah, lots of ways. I mean, LinkedIn, I try to be active and check my messages. So you can always go to LinkedIn. I'm sure we can give you the link. Superhumanprospecting.com is our main page for our outsourced prospecting. The H2H method.com, the H2H, number 2, H2H method.com. You can see all the 5 frameworks. You have the course on there, Trust Call the book. So that's a great resource there. Yeah, those are a couple places.
Awesome. Well, Ryan, thank you so much for taking the time to share your story and some of the information about calling and how you approach it and how you approach the business and kind of your methodology. And I can tell you're passionate about it. And so I think that probably showed through to the audience. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So this has been another exciting episode of the Marketing Agency Power Hour. We'll see you all next time. Another episode in the books. Thank you so much for tuning in. For show notes and more, please visit marketingagencypowerhour.com. This show is sponsored by SmartBooks, providing marketing agencies with bookkeeping, accounting, and finance support. With SmartBooks, you gain the clarity and confidence to make your agency a success. Until next time.